Now, this morning is Father's Day, and so I've got a 5-minute sermon which starts now, but don't time it. But Father's Day provokes, much like Mother's Day in this sense, a whole range of emotions and feelings. Okay, because we're all locked into what our own experiences have been. So maybe we've had an awesome father, great relationship, maybe a really bad one, maybe a father with someone you don't even know, maybe you want to be a father and you're not a father. I mean, the range of emotions that go with it. Okay, this day, so although it's a day we celebrate, we have to recognise it brings a whole bunch of emotions with everybody, based on experience, based on all sorts of things. And so that's what gets brought to these days. And we have to recognise that. We have to recognise that this can be a day of celebration, it can be a day of pain, it can be a day of loss. It can be a day of thankfulness, but it can also be a day of bitterness. And so all sorts of things. And so in that moment, and in this moment, actually the place we want to turn to, it really is to look at our Heavenly Father. Because we all bring different earthly experiences, but actually we have a Heavenly Father who is good and who loves us. And so I'm going to just briefly look at the story of the prodigal son. I'm just going to read through it, and then we're going to move on to a response. The prodigal son story in Luke says, Jesus continued, so he was telling his parables. He said, there was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, Father, give me my share of the estate. So he divided his property between them, and not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he'd spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country. He began to be in need, and so he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country who sent him into his field to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. So we've got this story. There is a son, it's the younger son, and he goes to his dad and he says, Dad, I want my inheritance now. Which is essentially what he's saying to his dad. Dad, I wish you were dead because I want my money now. That's essentially what he said to his dad in asking for that. I want my inheritance now. I wish you were dead. That's what he's kind of saying. That's the culture. And so his dad's very gracious. His dad gives him his inheritance, and off he goes to a distant land to go and live the life. He leaves his home, he goes to another country, he goes to live the life. He squanders all his wealth on wild living. I'll let you fill in an imagination of what that might mean. And then he has nothing left. And then there's a famine. And then this man, who is a Jewish man, is essentially living with pigs, which culturally would be a massive no-no anyway, feeding them, trying to eat some of their food just to fill his stomach. And no one gave him anything. It might be that whilst he had a lot of money, he had a lot of friends, but once he had nothing, he also had no one. And so he finds himself, this man from a wealthy family is now in a field feeding pigs, trying to steal some of their food. And so it continues in verse 17. It says, when he came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and yet here I am starving to death? I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. So he got up and went to his father. So this guy decides, this is crazy. I could go back to my dad, not as a son, but I could go be one of his servants, because even his servants have food. Even his servants have got provision. Even his servants are cared for. So I can go back, and I know I can't go back as a son because I've offended my father and I've wronged him. But maybe, just maybe, if I go back, he'll take me back as one of his servants. Maybe that could be true of me. And so he gets up and he starts the journey back to his father. But then it continues in verse 20. It says, while the man was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. And he ran to his son and threw his arms around him and kissed him. Now remember, this is the son who said to his dad, I wish you were dead, give me my money now. And had gone away and spent it all. And now he's coming back. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, he threw his arms around him and he kissed him. And the son said to his father, Father, I've sinned against heaven and I've sinned against you, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and he is alive again. He was lost and is found. So they began to celebrate. This isn't what the son was expecting. The son was going back and he's going back and going, can I please just be a servant? And his dad runs to him and throws his arms around him. And it says the father commands to bring the best robe for the returned son, and that's a sign of dignity and honor, proof of the son's acceptance back into the family. He then puts a ring on the son's hand, and the ring is a sign of authority and sonship. He puts sandals on his feet, and that's a sign of not being a servant, because servants in those days, they didn't wear any shoes. And then he orders the fattened calf to be prepared, and a party is held in his honor. Fattened calves in those times were saved for special occasions. This isn't just a party, it's a rare and complete celebration. My son was gone and he has returned, and I'm not just kind of begrudgingly welcoming him back. I'm completely pleased to see him. He is back in the family. My son. He then continues, meanwhile, the older son was in the field, and when he came near the house, he heard music and dancing, and he called to one of the servants and said to him, what's going on? Your brother's come back, he replied, and your father has killed the fattened calf because he's back safe and sound. The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him, but he answered his father, look, all these years I've been slaving for you, never disobeyed your orders, yet you gave me not even a young goat so I could celebrate my friends. But when this son of yours who squandered your property with prostitutes comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him. My son, the father said, you're always with me and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. This is like just a beautiful story, kind of self-explanatory, that even in the son dishonoring his father, taking his stuff and running, squandering it in sin, and then returning, the father isn't at the door with a big stick ready to punish the son. And he's not from a distance seeing his son returning and saying to his servants, go out and keep him away. Rather, the father sees his son coming and runs to meet him. And then when he meets him, not does he meet him, he puts robes on him, he puts a ring on him, he puts sandals on his feet, he kills the calf in celebration, and he says to him, welcome back to the family. And this is a picture in the end of what God our Father is like. We've all sinned. We've all got it wrong. We've all offended God in many, many ways. Even now, we're in different places. Maybe you're doing great with God. Maybe you've lived a life this week where you think, why would God want somebody like me? Yet this story tells us that not just is God waiting for you, but actually he wants to run towards you. What sort of God is this that would run towards the sinner? What sort of God is this who's so filled with love, a father so filled with love for his children, that when he sees you, he runs towards you. In this culture, you wouldn't catch a father running anywhere. It's not what would happen. The kind of the older man of the family is just culturally not what would happen. Everyone comes to him. But he sees him coming and he hitches up his robe and he runs to his son. It's a picture of the Father. It's a picture of God the Father. Don't be in any doubt today that no matter what is going on with your life, no matter what it looks like, no matter what you're facing, no matter what you've got wrong and no matter what you've blamed God for, he's not waiting with a big stick to kind of punish you. Rather, he's looking for the opportunity to run to you and shower love upon you, because that's who he is. We all bring different experiences and emotions to Father's Day based on our earthly experiences, based on what we've gone through. Whatever your experiences are today, you can know the love and acceptance of the Heavenly Father. He's always good. He's always loving. He's always forgiving. And he runs to us. And even today, he wants to run to you. He wants to run to you. He's not even here saying, come to me. He's saying, I want to run to you. Would you turn to me so that I might run to you? Would you turn to me so that I might come and shower love upon you? Would you turn to me so that I might put robes on you again and rings on your finger, and that I might celebrate being with you? Would you turn to me and know the love of a Father?